Hey everyone, I'm Bobby Sylvester. I host the Fantasy Bros Football Podcast with Mike Tagliere, who's here with us. Tags, how's it going, buddy?
It's going, man. I'm looking forward to this. This is like a new thing for us.
Absolutely. There is so much to talk about. We're going to be getting into week 3 preseason takeaways here. We've got a list of like 10 things to talk about, and we're going to blitz through them and get to Q&A here at the end. So, Tags, let's start with Marquise Lee. He's obviously out for the season with a knee injury. He tore a bunch of ligaments. Now, what's going to happen to this Jacksonville wide receiver core? Who's the number one guy, and how high are you taking him?
Yeah, it seems like it's Keelan Cole now. Keelan Cole looks like he's the clear-cut number one. Once Marquise Lee went down, it seemed like they had a clear stance on where they stood on players. And it seems like Keelan Cole, Dante Moncrief are going to be the top two wide receivers, with Dede Westbrook as the number 3, competing with DJ Chark. So, unfortunately, it's a run-first offense with an elite defense. So I'm not going out of my way to draft any of these guys. But if I got Keelan Cole as maybe a wide receiver 4, I might be okay with that.
Yeah, I have got him wide receiver 41. Obviously, I loved Keelan Cole. If you listen to the podcast, you know that. I loved him before this. I don't think it changes things that much because it's not like he's a big volume guy. I think the volume's going to get spread out. He's not a big touchdown guy either. Yeah, I think he'll lead this team in yards. Like I said, I'm drafting at 41, so I'll probably get him. But a lot of people have asked me, who do I have, Geronimo Allison or Keelan Cole? I'm still taking Geronimo Allison before Cole, which means I probably won't get Cole anymore with his ADP rising.
That's a good point, actually. I think Geronimo Allison's probably the pick, especially if it's a bench receiver, because you're just looking for the upside. So these are guys that you're going to plug into in a pinch, or if you have a bye week issue or things like that, that's when you're going to plug these guys in. And I think Allison comes with a bit higher upside.
And this is coming from the biggest Keelan Cole guy. So I just love Allison that much more. How do you feel about John Ross, another late round wide receiver? I don't know if you guys all saw the highlight, but that one play shot his ADP up so much. He looked phenomenal. He's so quick. He's obviously the fastest man alive. Tags, is he going to have a big breakout season?
I don't know if I'd say breakout season, just because I don't see Andy Dalton supporting 2 like top 30 wide receivers, and AJ Green is still AJ Green. You know, people that are surprised about seeing him out there dominating preseason week 3. I don't know what they were watching it before, because AJ Green's always been the same guy. I think he's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. He's like among the elite. John Ross, this is essentially his rookie year, so we have to expect there's going to be some missteps. There's going to be some times where he leaves his quarterback out to dry. But John Ross, there are going to be plays like the one that you saw in preseason week 3 where he just makes the defense look stupid. He is that fast, but he's got the moves to go along with it. So I like John Ross. I think he's perfect for a bench, because if AJ Green, for whatever reason, misses time, I think John Ross turns into maybe like a Deshaun Jackson type of player.
Okay. And Deshaun Jackson, he used to be a top 20 wide receiver. So Ross, that's his upside. A lot of people are saying because he's got the speed and everything, he's got tons of upside. I don't think that's true because of AJ Green. But yeah, if Green was to go down, I mean, we saw what Brandon LaFell did in this offense when AJ Green went down, and it was really quality. It was better than DeAndre Hopkins that year, if you can believe it. So John Ross, I've got him wide receiver 58. Yeah, I'll take a stab on him at the end of drafts, but I'd rather have Cameron Meredith, Josh Doxson, Chris Godwin, Anthony Miller. Tags, you're with me, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's where I'm at with him right now. And like I said, he's one of those guys that you want on your bench. You don't want to rely on him for starter production, but fortunately, you don't have to draft him as such. I was looking at his ADP right before we started recording, and John Ross is sitting there as like the wide receiver 75. I mean, I like him more than that. I have him right around that wide receiver 55 to 60 range as a good bench upside play.
Now, Tags, if you had told me 3 weeks ago that I would have Adrian Peterson in my top 35 wide receivers, I would have laughed so hard. Like, well, what could have possibly happened that I would have him there? And here we are. I've got him running back number 33, ahead of guys like Peyton Barber, Ronald Jones, Rashad Penny. I think he's going to be the workhorse. Do you agree? Is he back?
Well, it's funny. You just said that you would have laughed a few weeks ago if you had Adrian Peterson as a top 35 wide receiver, and I would still laugh at you if you'd had him as top 35 wide receiver. So, no, he's definitely. So I actually have him as my number 36 running back, which tells me that he's like at the very end of the RB3 range, which means he's going to be a decent flex play. I mean, I talked about it in our Fantasy Pros Slack chat, saying that I feel like you don't sign someone like Adrian Peterson, who has a similar skill set to, Samaje Perine and Robert Kelly, to come in and just sit on the bench. Adrian Peterson does not sign to sit on the bench. Obviously, there's been one time that happened in his career, and it happened with New Orleans.
He thought he was the starter.
Yeah, well, yeah. And we also saw how quickly he was shipped out of there. I think it was after 5 games.
Well, yeah, because they had 2 of the top 5 fantasy running backs in football. Washington, I'm sorry, Rob Kelly and Samaje Perine, they are not that. They're not top 50 guys.
No, unfortunately, they're not. And that's the thing. Those guys are going to slide down the draft board, and that's fine. You should keep an eye on them, though, because Adrian Peterson, while I think he does start the year strong, that motivation's there. The offensive line is probably one of the best that he's ever played behind in his
Yeah.
career. You have to keep an eye on him. He is aging. Age catches up with everyone, as we've seen with Peterson over the last 2 years.
What's his ceiling though? Like, can he be a top 15 guy again?
I think his ceiling is like Marshawn Lynch type territory, where it's like you're
Exactly.
talking like a
Agree.
top 24 running back, but he's never going to get into the top 12 again. With today's NFL, you have to catch passes to get there. And with Chris Thompson on the roster, there's no way they're going to use him in that role.
Agree. Yep, definitely agree. All right, let's talk about this Eagles team. They've got Carson Wentz, Alshon Jeffrey. Neither of them's playing. Wentz is going to miss at least 2-3 weeks probably. I'm sorry, I skipped Peyton Barber. Let's go back to Peyton Barber really quick,
Yeah.
who flat out has stolen the job from Ronald Jones for Tampa Bay. I'm not a big believer in Ronald Jones. Tags, I know you like him. How long is Peyton Barber going to hang on to this job?
I do like Ronald Jones. And the thing is like Peyton Barber's been on the roster the last 2 years. And I continue to go back to
Sure.
this, right? Is because, he's been practicing with the team. The team knows exactly who he is and what he can do. They were sitting him behind Doug Martin and Charles Sims the last 2 years. And by the way, Charles Sims and Doug Martin were averaging 3.03 yards per carry. So it's not like they were carrying the team. They finally felt the need like they had to go to him towards the end of last year. And did he turn out to be a better player than they thought they originally had? Yeah, but not enough to stop them from drafting a running back at the top of the second round when they had plenty of needs on that defense. Their offensive line is still very shoddy. And I think that's why we've seen Ronald Jones fall in drafts, because he's playing
Yeah.
with a less than stellar offensive line, because a lot of the time he's been coming in with the backup offensive lineman. There's been a stat I've thrown out on a podcast where he's been hit behind the line of scrimmage. His average per attempt is negative half of a yard where
It's
he's
a
being hit
great
from
stat.
when he
That
gets
is
the
so
ball.
telling.
Yeah, so Ronald Jones,
Yeah.
the talent is there. It's just a matter of him getting the reps with the first team, and I do
Mhm.
think that happens as the year goes on. Obviously, it's Barber's team right now, but I'm still drafting Ronald Jones right around the RB 32 range because it's a
Okay.
risk reward situation.
I've got Ronald Jones down there, like I said, around, I've got him running back, wide receiver. I've got him running back 37. So I'm probably not going to get any shares. But if you ask me who's the most talented, Barber or Jones, it's Ronald Jones. It's
For
not
sure.
even close. So
Yeah.
Barber's look good. I think he'll hang on to this job as long as he does well. I don't know how long that's going to happen, though. I would bet Ronald Jones has the job before week 5. And from then on with Jameis Winston, it's going to be a good quality, flex play every single week at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you and I are in the same thing. And I
Yeah.
think it might hurt Peyton Barber that he has to play with Ryan Fitzpatrick for the first couple of weeks, where it's like,
You're
you
right.
might see his stock dropped, where Ronald Jones might come back into the starting lineup just as Jameis Winston is coming into the lineup. And by the way, Jameis Winston has looked phenomenal in the preseason.
He sure has. Jameis Winston is awesome. I'm not sure he's going to be a superstar, but I think he's in that very next tier. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day he throws for 5,000 yards.
Yep.
Okay, now let's move on and talk about Carson Wentz and Alshon Jeffrey. I jumped the gun on that one. Now I'm excited about this one because I am fading both these guys so hard, and I want to tell everybody: don't draft Carson Wentz. Don't draft Alshon Jeffrey. I've got them. I've got Carson Wentz outside my top 18 quarterbacks. I've got Alshon Jeffrey outside my top 45 wide receivers. I mean, he's probably going to miss 6 weeks, maybe more. And Carson Wentz, his touchdown rate's going to come crumbling down. He's bouncing back from a huge injury. I'm just not a big believer in either of these guys, and they're going to miss time just wasting roster spots.
Yeah, one of the stats I threw out on the podcast today is here's a list of wide receivers, just some of the wide receivers who finished with more yardage than Alshon Jeffrey last year. Rashard Matthews, Jermaine Kearse, Des Bryant,
Yeah.
Devin Funches, Kenny Stills, and a lot of these guys, obviously some aren't even being drafted at all. So, take it easy with the Alshon Love. We know the regression is coming in the touchdown category. So he's falling into the point in drafts where it's like people are starting to expect him to wind up on the pup list. I don't know. I happen to think that he's going to avoid the pup list, but he's going to return maybe around week 3 or week 4. We're hearing something similar about Carson Wentz too, by the way. And here's the thing. If you were told today that Carson Wentz, even if you're high on him, is like the number 7 quarterback, let's say, if he's going to miss 2 games, what's the difference between him and Jameis Winston? I mean, Jameis Winston was a guy that we liked
I'd
as a
rather have
top
Jameis.
10
Yeah.
as a top 10 quarterback, and like he gets suspended for the first 3 games. All of a sudden he's being not drafted. So Carson Wentz, unless we hear something really good really soon, I think Carson Wentz is being extremely overdrafted as the QB7 right now.
Our content manager is going to kill us for trash here on Carson Wentz, but I think he's in for a tumble. No
Yeah.
one, no one produces 8+ touchdown rate 2 years in a row. It's never happened before. Next guy I want to talk about here, Royce Freeman. This is so sad for me. because I was all over Royce Freeman. I got him in so many leagues. His ADP rose to around 4, and I was like, that's a little bit too high for me, but I'll still probably get some shares. And now he's not even starting tags. What in the world, man?
This is terrible. This is incompetent coaching, is what it is, because Royce Freeman essentially did everything possible that you could have ever asked him to do in the preseason, scoring in every single game. Devontae Booker didn't do anything special. He's never done anything special in the NFL. As a matter of fact, he had the workhorse job when CJ Anderson went down in 2016, did nothing with it. As a matter of fact, I
Yeah.
think he averaged around 3 yards per carry as the starter. So this is ugly, man. And this changes my entire outlook on the Broncos team, like their offense in general, because it's incompetency.
I don't know what to do with this. I mean, I'm still drafting Royce Freeman if he drops to the 6th, but no longer am I taking him back in the 4th round, early 5th round, like I had been. It's a bummer.
Well,
And
here's the question.
you have to
Here's
think
the
he's going to take over the job, but like if they're not giving it to him now, what could he do better?
Well, what running back of these are you going to draft? Are you going to draft Royce Freeman? Are you going to draft Sony Michel?
Michelle,
Well, I agree with that, but so let's just keep it to Royce Freeman, Ronald Jones, and Rashad Penny. Which one of those? How do you
Freeman,
rank those guys?
not even close.
So you think the Freeman's going to take that starting job before Jones takes it in Tampa Bay?
I will say I will say it'll be a split first. I think Jones is going to take the job first, but Freeman is going to help my team more. I mean, if Freeman has the job the last 8 weeks of the season, he can win you your league. I really think he's going to be a bell cow once he gets this job and a superstar.
I like Royce Freeman. When we were doing the scouting process on the running backs, I liked Royce Freeman, compared him to Jordan and Howard. So I believe
I
he
mean, has there
can.
been a better running back this year in the preseason?
No, no,
Yeah.
I don't. No, I mean Kenyon Drake's been really good, but rookie
Yeah.
running back, no.
Yep. All right, man. Let's talk about Alfred Morris here. He's getting some hype with San Francisco. Obviously, they've got Shanahan. They can do whatever they want. They could pick up anyone, Barry Sanders right now from retirement 20 years ago, and he'd still be good in Shanahan's offense. So I think Alfred Morris can do it. He's got 1,600 yards before, but is he going to play enough? They've got Breida. They've obviously got Jerick McKinnon, who are both a little bit banged up. What's going to happen here, Tags?
Yeah, it's really tough to say. When Alfred Morris signed there, nobody wanted to listen to me when I said that he could be like a real threat. He actually looked really good in the preseason game that he played. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Alfred Morris is a guy that you should draft in the range of someone like Adrian Peterson, because I don't think he's guaranteed any role. It's very possible that he was signed just to be a camp body because he knows, he knows the offense and they needed someone to step in right away. That's very possible. But I think this said more about Joe Williams and that they weren't confident in him carrying the role in this
Yeah.
offense. He might be the one that's cut. Whereas Alfred Morris, if Alfred Morris makes this roster, I believe he's actually a threat to carries to both Jerick McKinnon and Matt Breida.
A threat to steal carries, not a threat to be fantasy relevant, in my opinion. I'm not drafting Alfred Morris or going anywhere near him. I would much rather have, a James Conner or John Kelly.
He's a waiver wire speed dial type of guy. We want to see the snaps because week 1, you're not going to want to play. I don't think it's exciting to play any of them because they're playing the Vikings in week 1.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd play Le'Veon Bell against. Obviously, I'd play Le'Veon Bell against the Vikings, but that's you get my point.
Yeah.
Brandon Marshall is actually going to start. What? Did we draft him now?
No. I mean, we knew Brandon Marshall was going to start last year, right? When he was with the Giants. That was like, it was a given. Everybody had talked about it.
Though. It's Eli Manning and Russell Wilson. I'm drafting Brandon Marshall.
Where are you drafting Brandon Marshall?
Last round?
What if someone tells you that they wanted to take him in the 14th round over someone like James Washington?
That's pretty close. I think I'm taking Brandon Marshall.
I mean, me personally, I actually, with my last round pick, if you told me that he was available and Jaron Brown was available, I would actually personally take Jaron Brown. I feel like he's someone that Arizona really loved under Bruce Arians. Like they were really high on Jaron Brown, and he actually stepped up and he showed off a few games. So I think the skill is there. He's not a small wide receiver. He's actually decent. I want to say he's 6'2". So I believe that he is starting alongside of Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett, whereas Brandon Marshall's like a depth piece, a good one at that. And I think they may rotate some of those snaps, but I'm not buying. I think Brandon Marshall, he's 34 years old now. Wide receivers who, especially ones that are 6'4" and 230 pounds, like Brandon Marshall is, who has taken a beating on his body. He hasn't looked good the last few times we've seen him on the field. So I'm not buying it. It was always going to be a shock to me if he made the roster. So I think it's an accomplishment for him to even make the roster.
You know what? I like Jaron Brown. I like him fine. I just think Brandon Marshall has more upside because he's got the touchdown ability. We've seen it before. I mean, just 2-3 years ago, whatever it was, he was the top 3 wide receiver in fantasy football. Yeah, he's older. Yeah, he's dealt with some injuries, but he's going to Russell Wilson's offense. I don't mind taking a flyer. So what if I have to cut him in 2 weeks? At least I've got a chance at someone who could be a wide receiver too. I don't think you can say that about Jerome Brown.
Yeah, Jerron Brown 6'2", 205. I just looked that up just to make
Okay.
sure because I thought he was around the 6'2", 6'3" mark. So he's not a small receiver either. And that's the thing is if Brandon Marshall is starting over Jerron Brown in week 1, even if he doesn't score a touchdown in that first game, I will add him to my roster. Absolutely. Because he is a red zone presence being that big guy. Russell Wilson's a very accurate quarterback. Obviously, I think he made Jimmy Graham look better than he was last year in terms of his ability at this point in
Yeah.
his career. So I think it's potential that he does the same thing for Brandon Marshall. I just don't want to pay for it is all.
Now we've got one more question, one more thing to talk about. Then we're going to go Q&A, and it looks like we're going to have about 10 minutes to do it. Eric Decker retired. The Patriots obviously have Edelman suspended. I think Kenny Britt is gone now. I mean, who is going to play here? Is Cordell Patterson going to play? Philip Dorsett? Are these guys actually going to get opportunities, and should we draft them?
I kid you not. So I did my listener league actually. We did our draft last week, and I went to the waiver wire this weekend, and I was scoping through it, and I came across Philip Dorsett, and I was like, oh, I can't do it. Like I couldn't pull the
Why
trigger
not?
because Philip Dorsett played with Andrew Luck when Andrew Luck was healthy. He couldn't do anything, and then he played with
Andrew
Tom
Luck's
Brady
not
when he was
Tom Brady.
healthy. Yeah, Philip Dorsett hasn't done anything. He's not doing it for me. But Cordell Patterson is one that's very interesting. So I went and added him in one of my leagues. So
Pretty
Cordell
well.
Patterson is someone who, when he came into the league, everybody wanted to compare him to Des Bryant. Like he was a specimen after the catch. He was hard to take down. They used
Yeah.
him on special teams, and nobody could ever figure out how to stop Cordell Patterson. So to know that he's now on a Patriots roster, one that, I mean, is lacking options. Let's be honest. They need some playmakers in that offense. So to add him and put him, if he's playing, 30 plus snaps in that offense, I think he could be a realistic fantasy option. He's made some splash plays in the preseason. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for Cordell Patterson just from a standpoint of like pure talent because the kid was always talented. It's just we needed to get him on an offense that was willing to use him in the way that he always should have been.
I mean, he's not Taylor Gabriel. They're not the same player, but I think they'll have the same type of fantasy outlook where, you can add them in a GPP, like a big tournament in DFS, and maybe he'll, take a screen pass to the house. I don't want to play him in the flex every week. I think most weeks he's going to be irrelevant. I think Philip Dorsett could be a flex play while Edelman's out. It's probably more James White, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And maybe even Jacob Hollister, their backup tight end. I could see them getting two tight ends involved again. He's looked good in the preseason.
Yeah, no, he has, and he looked good last preseason too, but he didn't see the field very much. So I don't know if I want to play a second tight end, but I think the James White call is the one that I would do. Is that I think over the first 4 weeks of the season with Julian Edelman out, I think Rex Burkhead and
Yeah.
James White are going to share somewhat slot duties where they're going to have more receptions than they typically would. And these are guys that you might want to sell high when Julian Edelman returns to the lineup because their target share is going to go down. And honestly, we might find out
Yeah.
more about Sony Michel by that time. We might find out if Rex Burkhead's knee is still bothering him because all that stuff plays into our actions in fantasy football. And but going into the season, this is what our mindset should be.
All right, Tags, let's go to Q&A. And the way we're going to do this, we're just going to start at the top of the chat, guys who were here first, and get each one of them. So Vanilla Wilt, he says, do you think Samuels, that's Jalen Samuels, he's a running back / tight end, is going to take over Vance's role if he's injured?
I don't think so. It seems like that the Steelers have a specific role in mind for him, and I just don't know what it is right now because the tight end position they have both Jesse James and Vance McDonald in front of him,
Yeah.
and then at the running back position, Le'Veon Bell and James Conner has looked phenomenal. So
He's awesome.
yeah, Samuels is a type of guy that I would not even pay attention to in redraft leagues right now. He's more of like if you're in a dynasty league, obviously he's someone you stick on your bench, but I'm not
Yeah.
too excited about him.
I think he's a good player for an NFL team. For a fantasy team, not interested. I wouldn't take him in the top 300 probably at this point, which is sad because I got some shares in best ball thinking he might be the James Conner, but it's James Conner.
For sure.
All right, Evan Donovan. Kevin White, top 24 wide receiver this year.
Stop it, Evan.
Is
Stop
there
it.
seriously though, is there any sense in drafting him? We know his athleticism. We saw the play. Is there any reason to draft him, Tags?
No, there's not. I mean, I hung on to him in one of my dynasty leagues because I felt like, this is his last shot. We don't even know if he's going to make the roster. Javon Wims has played out of his mind this preseason, and apparently the Bears are debating cutting one or the other. And it wouldn't surprise me if it's Kevin White. So, I mean,
Wow,
he's a backup receiver, and even if for some reason Allen Robinson got hurt, Taylor Gabriel's still there, Anthony Miller, Trey Burton, all these guys, Tariq Cohen would step up. I'm not buying Kevin White, but the one question I do want to mention in the chat is that why is Mike talking to Danny Amendola?
I mean, Danny Amendola ran a 4.740, so I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know
weak.
who you're talking about. That's not very good. And I don't know. I don't think Danny Amendola has any world records, does he, Tags?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah.
Maybe most games missed in a like a 5-year span, maybe.
Best looking player in the NFL, maybe? I don't think that's a
Mm,
world record though, because like the NFL's not worldwide yet.
right.
All right. From NA, Geronimo Allison or James Conner? This is a great question. Can we just do both of them? Like, take Allison in the 13th round before somebody else does it, and then get James Conner at the end of your draft. But if I have to pick, it's Allison because he's going earlier. Um, and Allison's in my top 40 wide receiver. So what else am I going to say?
Yeah, it's Allison for sure because James Conner, unless Le'Veon Bell gets hurt, you're going to be able to get him for cheaper off the waiver wire after a couple of weeks. Like you're going to be able to do that. Whereas Geronimo Allison, I believe he's someone who will be on the waiver wire in exactly 0 leagues after week 1 because Geronimo Allison's going to line up against Prince Amukamara for the majority of the time against the Bears. And I think Allison can win that matchup. So
Yeah.
Geronimo Allison's the one whose value is going to go up. So go there. And if for whatever reason he's not getting starter snaps, then you can just drop him for James Conner.
I can't believe Geronimo Allison's ADP hasn't risen as much. I mean, because he's the number 2 right now. Randall Cobb is not good to go. And if Geronimo Allison plays well, he's going to keep playing in wide receiver 2 sets. I see no reason why not.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Geronimo Allison has done everything they've asked him to
Yeah.
do. And when Aaron Rodgers respects you and says that you're
Keep
practicing right,
praising. Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is the commander of that offense, and he decides where that ball goes.
Which late round flyers have the best chance to flash in week 1 tags from
Anthony
Daniel?
Miller.
Anthony Miller?
Oh yeah, well, I mean they're going
Okay.
against the Packers. The Packers
Yeah.
they drafted a couple cornerbacks. They have a lot of weakness in the roster. The free safety position with Morgan Burnett gone. The linebacker position, they've had 2 linebacker injuries this preseason. That guys were supposed to be starters. Over the middle of the field, they're going to be abused, and I think Anthony Miller is in the perfect spot to do that, especially when you consider that it's Allen Robinson's first game back, in over a year.
Yeah. Vance McDonald, he's going up against the Browns, which is like kind of a gimme, right?
Yeah.
And Vance McDonald's a high upside guy. So I don't mind drafting him even as my second tight end. Like maybe if you've got Jordan Reed and just seeing if Vance McDonald hits. And if Reed goes down, then maybe you get Vance McDonald. If it doesn't work out, then you drop McDonald after the first week when he probably gets you 80 yards and a touchdown, and you pick up Ricky Seals-Jones. So
And you know what I was, hold on, Bobby, real quick before we move on, like
yeah.
one of the late round flyers. I don't know if you consider Calvin Ridley a late round flyer because like it depends on what league you play in. But if you
Mhm.
can get him in like the 13th round, and if you're looking for someone just to like maybe like give you a spark in your lineup, week 1 they're playing the Eagles. The Eagles have so where Ridley's going to line up on the field is like most of the time it's going to be at right wide receiver, which is against Jalen Mills. Jalen Mills played better last year, but he's a cornerback that ran a 4.61 40, and he's always had trouble with speed down the field. So if Calvin Ridley matches up with him
It's a
more
good
often than
call.
not, Ridley could have he could flash in week 1.
All right, next question here. Have they picked the listener league yet?
Mine, we did.
Yeah. Mine, we have not. We're picking the listener league here at some point this week. You will hear from us when we pick. And I'm excited about it. So if you guys haven't checked out Sleep Rep, I'm not saying this because like they are putting on these leagues for us. I really love Sleep Rep. I seriously did change over my home league to Sleep Rep. It's a cool
It's a
sleep.
really fun, yeah, it's a really like
Yeah.
easy to navigate
Yeah.
website. This is my first time using it, and I've had nothing
Yeah.
but good experiences so far.
It's kind of like Facebook, but with fantasy football because you've got
Oh,
all
don't
kinds of chatting
no
options.
Facebook, no
Yeah,
Facebook.
I don't use Facebook, but like the concept. Yeah. All right. Next one. Where do you draft Andrew Luck? Round 9, good?
I
I'm not
sigh.
saying.
I sigh
I'll go round
because
11 if he's there. He's probably not going to be there though.
yeah, it's like that risk reward area of your draft where it's like you're debating between him and someone like Ben Roethlisberger. I think Roethlisberger's safer, but even him, he's gonna have ups and downs. Me personally, I don't. Again, if I don't get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson in like the fourth, fifth, sixth round area, then I'm waiting at quarterback, and I'm probably gonna end up with someone like Roethlisberger in like the 12th or 13th round. And if if your league drafts quarterbacks a lot heavier than maybe mine do, then you should be okay drafting someone like Mitch Trubisky, someone like
Yeah.
Alex Smith in the later rounds. Like those are guys that can get it done in one quarterback leagues.
All right, man. I lost where we are in the chat, so you read the next one.
All right. All right. So Kevin asks, how confident should I feel drafting Barkley at 6?
Ooh, man. I don't know. It's a little bit scary. He's already had hammy problems. That's what scares me.
I'm not worried about Saquon so much. I think it was like a tweak, and granted, it's like an additional concern, sure, but no, to know that he's already back at practice, they're giving him
Yeah.
limited things, and they took it easy on him, which was a smart thing to do. He didn't need all those reps, and again, he's going to be the type of running back. It's like an all or nothing thing. That offensive line is going to take some time to gel. We've seen the offensive line have trouble this preseason, so
Yeah.
but you're also going to see Saquon like the physical specimen he is come out at times, like you saw in his first run in an NFL uniform. So So I'm okay at number 6. I'm more than confident taking him over someone like Alvin Kamara. If you wanted to tell me that, Mike, I really want to play it safe and like legitimately take zero risk in the first round, I guess I could say Melvin Gordon
Melvin Gordon.
could be someone that I would consider there. I think Leonard Fournette, but he's an injury risk himself. So I think
Yep.
Melvin Gordon, the guy has been
Julio
crazy
Jones is
good.
not a risk. I'm not gonna reach for Julio there, but,
Right.
if you want someone who's not a risk, I love getting Julio Jones. Also, if you looked at Saquon's schedule, man, what a disaster. This could be ugly.
Yeah, he starts out against the Jags. I mean, the Jags secondary is obviously the best part of that team, but their front seven is no joke. So it's not a really easy matchup to come into in your first game in the NFL. All right, let's see.
Thoughts on
Thoughts on
Amendola?
El Cunado. Thoughts on Danny Amendola? I mean, I don't know if this is a real question or not. I think it is. But
I'm
what's your
I'm
thought on
not
him?
taking him. I mean, I like him in the Landry slot, but I think it's gonna be Albert Wilson at this point, isn't it?
Danny Amendola has never withstood like playing a full time role, and I don't think
Yeah.
anything about that changes. It's a worse offense than he's ever been in, arguably. Albert Wilson's not going to take over that role just because it seems like Adam Gase is dead set on playing Danny Amendola in the slot for whatever reason. That team is a mess. I think Adam Gase gets fired sometime before like week 6. I think that really happens, and
They
it
want
could
to lose. They want Shea
yeah.
Patterson. Like their front seven on their defense was just obliterated this offseason because they wanted to.
Yeah, and they had to let go of some players that
Yeah.
requested to be let go. It's just an ugly situation. Miami's not going to be a very good football team. So yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say no to Danny Amendola. Let's see, what's the next one? Who will be the week 1 waiver wire gem? Isn't this the same thing as almost like who could?
I think it was the same guy who asked it. So let's actually move on. Pat say Sony looks good at the first practice back. What do you think, Tags?
Who's that?
Sony Michelle.
Oh, they said he looks good at first practice. I mean, that
Mhm.
doesn't shock me. People
Yeah.
are telling me like this one guy on Twitter, he was trolling me yesterday, I swear. And he was just like, you need to change your process because just because you liked Sony Michelle doesn't mean you should like him now. They obviously like Burkhead an awful lot. I'm like, I'm not saying they don't like Burkhead. Hold on, but obviously the Patriots do like Sony Michelle because they drafted him in the first round and they don't spend
Yes.
money on running backs. There was my process in the first place is what led me to love Sony Michelle, not my love for the Patriots because I'm not a Patriot lover. I am neutral on almost every team in the
I'm a
NFL.
lover of 150 carries within the 10-yard line in the past 2 seasons.
Yeah,
Next best is 125.
and a third
That's what
down,
I'm a lover of.
yeah, a 3 down running back who could play on all the downs. He could help protect Tom
Yep.
Brady's blind side. Yeah, that's why Sony, like, we're buying Sony Michelle still.
All right, let's see here. There's a lot of conversation here.
For sure. You guys have had a good time here. We got enough time for one more. Let's find one more question here, Bobby.
All right. Do you want to ask me a question? Because I'm not seeing one right now. Kamara or David Johnson
Kamara or
from
David
Michael?
Johnson? No, that's not a real question, is it?
Okay. Well,
It's
it is a real question,
it's
but
David
I'm
Johnson's.
taking David Johnson. I
Yeah.
don't like Kamara. I've got him as my number 6 running. No, I'm sorry, my 8 running back. How about this one? Keelan Cole or Michael Gallup?
That's a good question. And I would say Keelan Cole as of right now, because obviously we know
Mhm.
he's locked into a starting role. Michael Gallup has looked great in the preseason. I think that Michael Gallup is going to be a starting wide receiver for the Cowboys at some point this year, but unfortunately, it's not going to be in week 1. So
Yeah.
knowing that, and knowing that, if you guys listen to the podcast, you know that we talk about how important the waiver wire is over the first couple weeks of the season, because that is when we see the actual, there's no more coach speak. It's like, what snaps are these guys getting? Who's number 1 on the depth chart? Who's number 2? And we kind of can go through information. So you need to be able to drop some guys over those first couple of weeks. And Michael Gallup might be one that you'd end up dropping, unfortunately, whereas
Yep.
Keelan Cole can give you spot start availability.
I agree. I don't want to answer more questions, but I saw this one. I'm sorry, Tags. Sony Michelle won undrafted in someone's auction. How much fab do you spend if somebody slips through the radar like this? I think it's 55, 60% on Sony Michelle.
I would honestly be okay with spending like 80%
Whew,
of it. Like,
okay,
and
yeah,
that's just being honest,
yeah,
just because like me, like I'm guessing your draft was drafted early on, or maybe he slipped through the cracks. I don't know what happened here, but
man.
I would be okay with
There
it
might not be
because
a better waiver wire pickup all season unless Todd Gurley gets hurt and John Kelly takes over.
it's very possible that Sony
Yeah.
Michelle turns into what Dion Lewis was towards the end of last year.
Mhm. All right, guys, that's all for today's Q&A. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully we do. I'm imagining we're going to do more of these. Let us know what you think on Twitter at Mike Tagliere NFL and at Bobby Fantasy Pro. And thank you all for your support. We really appreciate you guys and good luck in your drafts.